My mom called me late at night and said, "You're not my child." She then revealed I was her sister's daughter, abandoned years ago. Now, after all this time, my real mom wants to meet me, and I'm finally facing the truth. Hi, I'm Olivia, 38 years old. I'm writing this because I honestly don't know who else to talk to right now. And maybe getting this off my chest will help me process everything. This whole thing started a little over a week ago, and it's been all whirlwind of emotions, confusion, anger, sadness, and a strange kind of curiosity I never expected to feel. For my entire life, Karen has been my mom. She raised me, took care of me, and was the center of my world growing up. We had our typical mother-daughter spats, but nothing I thought was extraordinary. She was the one who kissed my scraped knees, cheered the loudest at my school place, and cooked Sunday dinners with a stubbornness only a mom can have, and never questioned it. She was my mom, Andy was her daughter. Then one night last week, everything changed. It was around 11 p.m. on a Thursday. I was home alone, scrolling through my phone and getting ready for bed. My phone rang and it was Karen calling. She rarely calls this late, so I answered right away, a little surprised. Her voice was trembling. "Olivia," she said softly, almost like she was afraid to speak. "I need to tell you something. It's something I should have told you a long time ago." I sat down on the edge of the couch, my heart pounding without knowingly. "Okay, Mom, what is it?" She took a long breath and then her words hit me like a punch. I wasn't prepared for. "You're not my child." I blinked. "What?" I said, thinking maybe I misheard her. "You're not my daughter, Olivia." "I'm so sorry I didn't tell you sooner." Her voice cracked on the last word, and I could tell this wasn't easy for her. I was stunned. I don't even remember what I said next because Mimond was racing to process what she had just confessed. Then who am I? Karen's voice dropped to a whisper. "You're Miss Sister Marlene's daughter." I sat there frozen. My mind went blank, but at the same time 1,000 questions flooded in. "What? Your sister Marlene? But why? How?" Karen explained slowly, as if digging up a secret too painful to hold in any longer. "Apparently, Marlene had me when she was very young. She was married to a man she loved, but shortly after I was born, her husband died unexpectedly. The grief was overwhelming. She sank into a deep depression and at some point left me with Karen. She promised to come back when she was ready, but she never did. Karen told me that she raised me from then on. She never wanted me to feel abandoned or unloved, so she kept the truth hidden, even from me. I felt like I was watching this story happen to someone else. The daughter I'd always thought I was suddenly not who I believed. I asked Karen why she waited so long to tell me. She said she was afraid of how it would change everything, afraid I'd hate her or Marlene or feel like my whole life was Allie. For the next few days, I tried to process it all. I kept replaying her words over and over. The more I thought about it, the more I realized I didn't even know much about Marlene. Karen said she hadn't heard from her sister in years. Marlene had vanished apparently. Then, out of the blue, Karen told me she'd gotten a call. It was Marlene. She wanted to meet me. That news sent my emotions into overdrive. My heart raced, but I also felt this cold knot of fear. After all this time, why now? What did she want? And more importantly, What did he want? After Karen told me that Marlon had called and wanted to meet, the atmosphere in our house shifted overnight. It was like the quiet before a storm, heavy and unpredictable. I remember sitting at the kitchen table the next morning, still trying to process everything. Karen was unusually quiet, making coffee in silence, her hands trembling slightly. I wanted to ask her all the questions swirling in my mind, but something held me back. Maybe it was the exhaustion I saw in her eyes, or the way she avoided looking at me directly. Finally, I broke the silence. Mom, why now? After all these years, why did Marlene call you? And why would she want to meet me? Karen didn't answer immediately. Instead, she sighed and sat down opposite me, fingers wrapped tightly around her mouth. She called last week out of the blue. Said she wants to see you. Said she's sorry for what happened, that she wants to explain. Her voice sounded almost rehearsed, like she had prepared these words for years, but never dared to say them out loud. But do you believe her? I asked. After everything, why should I trust her? A revenue. Karen's face tightened. I didn't want this to come out like this, Olivia. I wanted to protect you. I wanted to keep you safe from all themes your birth mother left behind. I frowned, confused. What mess? Karen looked away for a moment, then back at me, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. Marlene was never the saint you think she is. She made a lot of bad choices, more than you know. Leaving you wasn't just about her grief. There's more to the story. Things that could hurt you if you get too close. That was the first real crack in the picture I had of my birth mother. Suddenly, Marlene wasn't just the tragic young woman who'd lost everything. She was something else. Someone dangerous, someone who might bring trouble. I wanted to know more, but Karen shut down after that. She refused to say anything else about Marlene's past. Instead, she begged me to be careful, to not rush into anything. But my curiosity was already a fire burning too brightly. Toinier. I started looking into Marlene and my own, trying to find any trace of her online or through mutual contacts. What I found was unsettling. There were old news articles, small-town papers from years ago, mentioning Marlene in connection with some questionable incidents. There was talk of deaths, disappearances, people who had been hurt by her absence or worse. Nothing that a tribe accused her of a crime, but now to make her sound unstable, maybe even dangerous. The more I read, the more I felt like I was stepping into a family drama far darker than I ever imagined. One afternoon, I confronted Karen with what I discovered. I looked at her up, I said quietly, watching her face closely. She's not the innocent victim you make her out to be. Karen's expression hardened. You don't know the whole story, Olivia. You think you do, but you don't. I pressed further. Then tell me, why did she really leave me? Why did she disappear? What aren't yodeling me? Karen's eyes flashed with anger. Because it's better you don't now. Because some things are safer kept buried. That moment felt like a turning point. Karen wasn't just a protective mother. She was guarding secrets, controlling the narrative in a way that felt suffocating. Still, the mystery nodded at me. Who was Marlene really? And why had Karen taken me and raised me like her own if her sister was so terrible? Then came the phone call. It was Marlene herself. Her voice was cold, clipped, and not at all what I expected. She didn't apologize or cry. She didn't beg for forgiveness. Instead, she said, "You're a part of me whether you like it or not. I've come back to claim what's mine." That sentence sent a chill down my spine. Karen answered the phone first, and her face went pale when she heard Marlene's tone. When she handed me the phone, I realized this wasn't just a reunion, it was a demand. Marlene told me she wanted to meet on her terms and her way. No interference. No delays. She said she had questions, answers, and maybe even some things to take from me. I hung up, heart pounding. I looked at Karen, who was visibly shaken, but trying to mask it. "Did you know she'd be like this?" I asked. Karen nodded slowly. She's always been like this, selfish, manipulative. She sees people as pawns. That night, I lay awake wondering if meeting Marlene would open a door to the past I was better off leaving closed. I felt torn between the woman who raised me, who had lied to me but loved me, and the woman who gave me life but abandoned me without a word. The days leading up to Marlene's visit felt like walking through a fog. Corinne and I barely spoke except for the necessary clip conversations about logistics. When Marlene would arrive where she wanted to meet, how I should behave. The truth was I didn't want to meet her at all, but part of me felt trapped, like this was something I had to face. I told myself I just needed to be careful, keep my guard up. But deep down, I wondered if Corinne was right, if Marlene really was the kind of person I needed to fear. The night before Marlene was due to arrive, Corinne sat me down at the kitchen table. Her face was pale, but her eyes had that sharp edge I hadn't seen in years. "Olivia, listen carefully," she said, voice low and urgent. "Whatever happens tomorrow, don't let her get under your skin. She's a master manipulator. She'd try to twist of everything, your feelings, your memories, to serve her own purposes." I nodded, but I didn't know what to expect. I'd never seen this side of Karen before. She was usually the one who cried at every sad movie, who told me to always be kind and trusting. Now she was cold, calculating, almost like a general preparing for battle. When Thede came, Marlene's arrival was nothing like I imagined. She didn't come with tears or apologies. She showed up with a stiff posture, sharp eyes, and an air of entitlement that made it clear she thought she had every right over everything around her. We met at a small cave halfway between Corinne's house and the town where Marlene said she'd been living. The place was quiet, the kind of spot where people could talk without interruption. Marlene didn't wait for me to speak. The moment I sat down, she fixed me with a gaze that felt like an accusation. "You've grown into a woman," she said, voice cool. "I suppose I should congratulate Corinne for doing such a decent job raising you. But make no mistake, I am your mother and you belong to me." I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "Why now? Why, after all these years?" She shrugged like it was the simplest thing in the world. "Because I am finally ready. Because you deserve to know who I am. Because there are things Karen never told you, things you need to understand about where you come from." Her words sounded less like a promise and more like a warning. Over the next hour, Marlene wove a story that made my head spin. She painted herself as the victim of tragedy and betrayal, but beneath her words, I sensed a darker truth. She was bitter, angry at Karen for taking me away, for keeping secrets. She didn't want to reconnect out of love. She wanted to reclaim what she believed was hers by right. And Karen, I realized, was just as ruthless in her own way. When I confronted her later about Marlene's attitude, she admitted with a cold smile, Marlene always wanted what she couldn't have. She never cared about what was best for you. The more I learned, the more it became clear that this was not a simple family reunion. It was a war between two women who each had their own version of the truth, and both were willing to fight for control over my life. After that meeting with Marlene, the fragile peace I thought I had with Karen shattered completely. They were no longer just mother and aunt. Both had turned into forces working against me, each in her own way. And I realized I was the prize caught between them. Karen became distant, but not in a quiet way. It was as if she was watching me, waiting for me to slip up, to choose Marlene, or worse, to walk away from her completely. She started leaving little reminders that I owed her for every year she raised me, for every sacrifice she claimed to have made. It was subtle at first, offhand comments about what could have been if Marlene had just cared. But it quickly grew into a constant, quiet pressure. Marlene, on the other hand, was more direct. She began sending messages, sometimes polite, sometimes sharp, demanding updates, insisting I visit her. It was clear she wanted to insert herself into my life on her terms, not mine. She talked about making things right, but what I heard was a warning. She expected loyalty, obedience, or else. I felt cornered. Both women were pulling me in different directions, and I was expected to choose sides in a conflict I never was to be part of. Their rivalry was no longer about family. It was about power and control. One evening, after a particularly tense phone call with Karen where she accused me of betraying her by considering seeing Marlene, I realized something. This wasn't about love or family for either of them. It was about control. And if I didn't take back control, I'd be lost in their war forever. I decided I wasn't going to let them manipulate me anymore. But I knew I couldn't confront them head on. They were both too entrenched in their grudges, too clever and guarded. I had to be smarter. I had to be patient. So I started quietly gathering information. I spent hours digging through old records, social media posts, and anything I could find about both women. What were their secrets? What skeletons did they have hidden in their closets? What had they done in the past that they desperately wanted to keep buried? The deeper I dug, the more I realized just how tangled this web was. Karen's sacrifices, they came with strings I've been tied to without knowing. Marlene's disappearance. It wasn't just grief or mental health struggles. There were hints of reckless choices, financial troubles, and people's hurt. Some even suggesting she hated Karen's kindness for her own benefit. Armed with this knowledge, I began to plan. Not out of hatred, though I won't deny I felt plenty of that, but out of necessity. If these women wanted to treat me like a prize to be won, then I would show them that I was no one's spawn. I started small. A carefully worded message here to Marlene, exposing a little of her past to her circle, watching how she scrambled to control the fallout. A quiet reminder to Corinne, dropped in casual conversation about the time she'd used my loyalty as a weapon. Neither of them realized yet that I was playing a long game. I was patient, watching how they reacted, measuring their weaknesses. And slowly I felt the balance starting to shift. After deciding I wasn't going to be caught in their crossfire any longer, I moved carefully. I knew I couldn't rush this or let emotion get the better of me. Both Karen and Marlene have been playing their own games for years in which they become experts at hiding their true intentions. If I was going to stand a chance, I had to outsmart them. I began by keeping meticulous notes. I wrote down every conversation, every strange look, every offhand comment that didn't sit right with me. I needed to see the patterns, the cracks in their carefully constructed facades. Karen, for example, always made sure to remind me of the sacrifices she'd made, but she never mentioned the moments when she made decisions without my input, decisions that shaped my life more than she ever admitted. Marlene was a ventricular. Her charm was sharp-edged, often leaving me second-guessing my own feelings. She'd bring up moments from my childhood that Karen had conveniently erased from her memory, painting herself as the real mother, the one who truly cared. But beneath that veneer, there was something darker, a hunger that went beyond just reclaiming her child. One afternoon, I got a message from Marlene. It was brief but chilling in its implication. I hope you're ready for what's coming. You don't know everything yet, Olivia. But soon you will. I didn't reply. Instead, I filed it away, my mind racing. What did she mean? What was she planning? At the same time, Karen's behavior became increasingly. She started questioning every move I made, demanding updates on who I was talking to, where I was going, what I was thinking. Her protectiveness crossed into possessiveness, and it made me feel trapped. One evening after dinner, she confronted me directly. You didn't need Marlene. You have me. You belong with me. Don't let her poison your mind. Her eyes were hard, and for the first time, I saw the threat behind her words. It wasn't just about keeping safe. It was about keeping tethered to her. That's when I realized I was surrounded by two women who wanted to control me in different ways, and the only way out was to break free entirely. I started reaching out to people who had known Marlene during her years away. Theons Karen warned me about. Old friends, neighbors, even distant relatives. Some refused to talk, clearly afraid of stirring up old wounds or angering Marlene. Others, though, were willing to share pieces of the truth. What emerged was a picture very different from Theon both. Karen and Marlene wanted me to see. Marlene hadn't just disappeared because of grief. She'd left behind hips, broken promises, and a trail of people who felt betrayed. There were whispers of manipulation, of using those around her for personal gain. And despite everything, she seemed poised to return, not with an apology, but with demons. On the other side, Karen's story began to unravel too. Behind her sacrifices were instances where she deliberately kept me in the dark, blocked letters, phone calls from Marlene, even medical information. She hadn't just been a protective mother. She had built walls around me, isolating from my own past. With these revelations, I knew it was time to act. I began to subtly challenge them both. It started by confronting Karen about the letter she had She tried to deny it at first, then grew defensive, but I pressed on gently, never losing my calm. Mom, I need to understand. Why would you keep me from her? Her face tightened, but then she sighed, a tired, defeated sound. Because I wanted to protect. You dot sometimes the truth hurts more than feely. I didn't argue. Instead, I told Harry was going to see Marlene again. This time on my terms. Karen's sharp look said she wasn't pleased, but she said nothing more. With Marlene, I began setting boundaries too. I told her it needed space, that I wasn't ready to forgive or forget, but I wanted honesty. Her reply was a chilling smiley face emoji and a single sentence. We'll see. After months of walking on eggshells, quietly gathering pieces of the past, and silently watching the way Karen and Marlene maneuvered around each other and me, I finally knew I couldn't keep living in this standoff. Both women claimed they loved me, but their actions spoke louder than any words. They wanted control, power, and to define who I was based on their version of the truth. I was caught in the middle, a silent hostage to a battle that wasn't mine. So I decided to face it head on. I called them both and arranged a meeting in a small public park, neutral ground, with enough space to keep things from getting too heated, but still close enough to force a confrontation. I remember sitting there on that cool autumn afternoon, the leaves crunching under, feeling a strange mix of dread and resolve. Karen arrived first. She was dressed neatly, her expression guarded but firm, like she was ready to defend herself, but also knew this conversation was inevitable. A few minutes later, Marlene appeared, her stride confident, a sharp and calculating. For the first time, I saw them side by side, not just as my mother and aunt, but as two very different women, both flawed, both deeply complicated, and both capable of more than I ever expected. I took a deep breath, studying myself. I'm here because I need the truth. I need to stop being caught in the middle of your fight. Karen's eyes flicked toward Marlene, then back to me. Olivia, you didn't know everything. I did what I had to do to protect you. Marlene crossed her arms, and I did what I had to do to serve, but I never stopped thinking about you. I looked from one to the other, feeling years of anger and confusion tightening in my chest. Protect me. You kept me from my own mother. You lied to me, Karen. And you, Marlene, you left without a word. You abandoned me. Karen's lips pressed into a thin line while Marlene's jaw tightened. I'm not here to decide who's right or wrong, I said. I'm here to say that I'm done being a pawn in your game. I'm done being the prize you fight over. I'm my own person, and I need both of you to respect that. Karen's voice was sweet, but firm. You think you can just walk away from everything from the years I spent raising you? I'm not walking away, I replied. I'm setting boundaries. I want honesty, respect, and space to figure out who I am without you controlling it. Marlene's eyes narrowed. And what about me? You think I don't have a right to be part of your life after all this time? You do, I said slowly, but I get to decide how and when. Not you, not Karen. Me. The air was thick with tension. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Then Karen said, a sound of both exhaustion and defeat. I was scared, she admits softly. Scared you'd be hurt if you knew the whole truth. I thought I was protecting you, and I was scared too, Marlene said, voice rougher than before. But I should have stayed. I should have fought for you instead of walking away. Over the next several weeks, I deliberately spent time with Karen and Marlene separately. I knew if I tried to juggle both relationships at once, it would overwhelm me, and it might just fuel the old rivalry between them. This was about me reclaiming my story on my own terms without their dramas colliding and dragging me down. With Marlene, it began slowly. Our first few conversations were awkward, loaded with silence and unspoken questions. I was nervous about what I might hear, afraid of facing the parts of her life she'd never shared, the parts that might question her even more. But I knew and needed to understand the woman behind the anger and abandonment, not just the mother who left. She opened up reluctantly at first, revealing chapters of her life I'd never imagined. She talked about the debts that piled up when she left, the financial chaos that spiraled beyond her control. She told me about the people she'd hurt along the way, not because she wanted to, but because she was desperate and scared. There were moments where her voice cracked, where the guilt that had haunted her for years poured out like a confession. She admitted how lonely it had been, how much she regretted walking away, but also how she felt trapped in her mistakes. Listening to her, I saw the deep ache beneath the surface. A woman weighed down by her choices, but still searching for some way to make things right. One afternoon, over coffee, she looked me in the eye and said, "I don't expect forgiveness right away. I'm not asking you to forget, but I want you to know I'm here now. Ready try." That moment was complicated. I wanted to reach out to hold on to the hope of a mother's love finally returned, but the wounds were still fresh. The years of silence too loud. So I told her honestly, I need time and I need honesty. No more secrets, Marlene ended, and though it was slow, I could she meant it. With Karen, things were different but equally challenging. Our conversations often felt like walking a tightrope. Too much pressure, and we both fall back into old patterns of control and resentment. I knew Karen had carried a heavy burden all these years, raising me while holding on to secrets and fears that shaped her actions. I confronted her about those secrets, the letters she hid, the phone calls she blocked, the medical information she kept from me. It wasn't easy. Karen's defenses rose immediately, but beneath the frustration, I caught glimpses of exhaustion and sorrow. One evening, as we sat quietly after dinner, she finally broke down in tears. I was scared that if you knew the truth, you'd hate me, scared that you'd leave me for her. Hearing her admit her fear changed everything. It didn't erase the pain, but it explained why she'd built walls around me. We spent hours talking not about blame, but about trust, respect, and what family really means. She told me about the sacrifices she'd made, working 2 jobs, keeping a home together, making decisions alone because she thought she had to protect me. I realized that in her way, she was scared to let go of the control because she loved me fiercely, even if it showed in flawed ways. We talked about what it would take to rebuild trust, and I made it clear, I need honesty. I need respect for who I am. No more silence or secrets. Karen nodded, her eyes shining with tears. I want that too. Neither relationship healed overnight. There were setbacks, days when old wounds ripened, moments of anger or frustration that left me questioning if all this effort was worth it. Sometimes I wanted to give up and retreat into the safety of silence. But every time I reminded myself that this was my life to claim, I began setting clear boundaries with both women. I told them I wouldn't tolerate manipulation or passive-aggressive comments disguised as concern. I told them I would decide when, where, and how we talked about difficult things. This wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about teaching them to respect me as an adult. With Karen, our relationship gradually shifted from one of dependency and control to cautious respect. We started having real conversations about my hopes, my struggles, and my independence. She still struggled sometimes. Old habits die hard, but I could see her making an effort, trying to loosen the grip she'd held for so long. With Marlene, trust was rebuilt brick by brick. She showed up when she said she would, answered my questions honestly, and shared her life without trying to rewrite history. I wasn't ready to call her mom just yet, but I was learning how to be in her life without the heavy shadow of the past looming over us. The most important lesson I learned throughout this process was that family isn't just about blood or who raised you. It's about honesty, respect, and choice. It's about creating relations where you can be your full self without fear. For the first time in my life, I felt free. Free from the tug-of-war between two women who tried to define me. Free from the secrets families that once held me captive. I am no longer a prize to be won or a secret tobe hidden. I am myself,